full relationship.
It's really good to hear. Just hearing you saying how the social media can be used for different purposes, for engaging community. Of course, for sending out marketing messages. It really confirms something. I've been teaching another unit, which is corporate and public communications.
Yeah.
So as you said, it's for a lot of organizations, it's a struggle. Sometimes there might be turf wars.
Yeah.
And it's really good to hear.
I mean, even we find that so media and communications is a separate area, but they sit right here with us, and we kind of joined under the Vice Chancellor, and we're very good friends. In fact, I worked with a communications person at DNJ as well. It's interesting, we have this debate where, I brief things into social media around that have a marketing purpose, and Meg from the media team looks at it and goes, but if you put that in too often, it looks like a devaluing our channel, because people are like, I'm just getting marketed to all the time. To which then my response is, yeah, I know, but if you just keep on going with media stuff, I'm not getting a recall on that. I don't mind being obvious about the marketing as long as it's interesting and fun, and that's when the creative part comes in. So even internally there's the debate, but it's much easier to have when it's joined rather than them having a social media team and us having a social media team, which would be a disaster. So I just think what's great about that is for anyone that's interested in that space, that field is forever growing and evolving and changing. And by the time your students finish up and are ready to go into the real world, it's going to be even different then. But they're at the cusp of working with that evolution. Just very quickly too, I think what happens is a lot of more traditional organizations, we're doing traditional things in marketing, and somebody says, hey, this whole social media thing is important, we better do it. And it becomes just a tack on. Rather than it being part of the natural revolution of the company. Now, saying that though, the longer we go, the more it is natural. By the time, I live here in I don't know how many years, and the new social media team happens, it would have already been ingrained in the UC culture and the way that social media works, which means that it's much easier for your students to already work with that, rather than just being seen as a tack-on solution or channel. So it's a great time to be in it.
Absolutely, and there is there is a lot of emphasis on proper planning and execution related to social media, rather than obviously treating it as an ad hoc activities. I think most of the businesses and most of the marketing experts that I talk to, they're just slowly, what I hear, that businesses are slowly learning about that, the importance of having a concrete aligned digital marketing plan. So it has to be aligned with obviously the overall strategy and overall marketing plan, but that alignment, it's not easy to achieve, and I'm sure it's just great to hear Ashley's perspective about it as well. So we're just getting to the the last bit of our interview, or last bit of our discussion.
The hardest question is yet to come.
No, hardest question. So 2 questions that I have. So the last question that I'm going to ask you is how do we, so if you have a simple answer, when it comes to marketing, I'm sure my students are sick of me saying that it's about creating value for customers and capturing value in return. So that's what we tell them again and again. So, but I know that in reality it's much harder for businesses to create that value and capture that value in return. So if I ask you if there is a simple solution for that value creation process, or it is a combination of a lot of activities?
Well, the answer is, so it's interesting because when you talk about value, I kind of think, if I had to summarize marketing, because I'm sure you've summarized marketing a million times to people, I actually kind of summarize it as it's a relationship building tool. That's really what it is. Because if you think of, being in a room full of strangers and you kind of think, well, I kind of want to make a friend here, and you pick someone, you begin a relationship with them by asking a question, they give you something back, hopefully you give something back. If you guys have a common ground, that relationship deepens, then you might end up being friends and all the rest of it. And if it doesn't, you move to somebody else. It's no different. Marketing is like an organization floating in a room full of customers and essentially going, who can we have a relationship with that's going to be two-sided? And it's interesting then when you go, okay, if I think about it that way, then the value proposition sits inside that. So what is the value of me having a friendship with someone? Now, it's no different as us to human beings. Why are you friends with some people? You know, you might be friends with some people because they have a common interest in terms of sporting or fishing, like I said before. You might just be in the same class and share the same passion for social media, whatever it is. And some of those are deeper and long-lasting than others, but they have a value in them. Because, you know, you talk to someone about social media, they might tell you something that you didn't think of before, different perspective. There's the value. What have you given back? You might also give them a different value and perspective, and that's the exchange. So the simple answer is a relationship followed by an exchange, and if that exchange has meaning to both parties, that's the value. Now, the problematic thing is on a marketing level, you know, where does the value come from? Well, so many different things. And you could start off with the basics. Well, hang on for a second. So if UC's, what's UC's value proposition? We offer education. So do all other universities. Okay, well, we offer it and we're quite good at very specific things. We're great in health and law, and we're great at build environment stuff and sporting components, you know, etc., etc. Our fad in terms of creative stuff is really great. Okay, so there you go. But still, other unis still do that. Okay, let's dig a little bit deeper. And if I keep on going that way, I'll get to the point where I can say, well, yes, but when it comes to Canberra and the ACT in the region, we're number one in the ACT for starting salaries and graduate outcomes 3 years in a row. And all of a sudden, you're on your own. And people go, oh, so you mean other universities? No.
And that's unique.
And that's unique. So the value to that person in a sales term is, hang on, so if I do a degree that I'm interested or passionate about at UC, the likelihood of me getting that result is higher than everywhere else. That's a real value to me. But see, there I'm just talking about the marketing component, right? But there might be another value. The value is, well, it's a much smaller campus. And we know that out of the student surveys we get, students end up feeling that the community here is much tighter, that they know the lecturers by name and vice versa, that they always have support. It's just much easier to really belong rather than feel like you're a number at a massive uni. So we know that. So I can say, well, you know, on a personal, psychological, or social level, we're a lot smaller and tight-knit and not expanding. We're not going to get into this gigantic campus. So if you're into that and that's what you'd like, this is going to be great for you. So on a social level, you can add that value. So there's many layers to this, and I can keep on building that out, you know, to courses and everything else. Apart from the fact that some people just like to be at a university that represents their own town. Absolutely. You know? So the thing about that is all of those, work integrated learning. We do that in every single degree, whilst other unis don't. So I can work on those value propositions in both ways. And also I can argue that students who come here end up getting jobs, are stimulating the economy, they're helping the society of Canberra and the region grow, etc., etc. So this is probably a student right now. No. But yeah, so I think the value proposition is built in many different things based on a good relationship, you know, exchange relationship.
And I really appreciate the way you have said, like, it's about an exchange which is meaningful for both the parties. So, and that's where, like, for students, it has to be the value that UC is offering, it has to be meaningful for them. And then we are doing marketing successfully, and I'm sure we are doing it okay, like we're doing it good, but obviously we're gonna get better eventually. So the last question for you, and we'll finish our interviews, we'll finish our discussion with that. So my last question to you is basically, do you have any advice for your younger self or for our uni students who are just starting their course in the field, in the domain of marketing? Do you have any advice for them?
Yeah, I don't know if my younger self, there's lots of advice, a lot of it probably would be to do with work. Wow, yes.